I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle Now. Bill, you're an NRA cheerleader. What do you think of the news that President Trump's administration has issued a regulation set to go into effect very soon, banning bump stocks? And I'll let you describe what those are, unless you don't feel like you want to do that, in which case I'll try to describe what they are.
Bump stock is it's an attachment basically that is put on the lower part of a semi-automatic rifle, where the recoil from the single trigger pull of the semi-automatic rifle essentially presents the weapon to be fired again very, very rapidly. So what it really essentially does is, even though the rifle internally is not on full automatic, when you hold the trigger down, the repeated shots and concussions from the semi-automatic fire turns it into a really rapidly firing, nearly as fast as my understanding, nearly as fast as a fully automatic weapon. As far as what I think about it, the whole point of this show is just for me to be honest about things. I personally don't see that you need a bump stock. It's not exactly aimed fire, and I personally don't have any problem with them being banned, but that's me personally.
Bill, just that phrase, you don't need a bump stock, seems to fly in the face of everything you stand for.
Well, this is why I said this is a difficult issue, and I keep saying for me personally. My professional opinion and my opinion, and if I was asked to render any kind of a legal discussion or judgment on this, would be do not infringe means do not infringe. Right? I mean, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Limiting magazine size is an infringement. Banning bump stocks is an infringement. All of this stuff is infringement. This particular case, I personally don't feel super, I just personally don't feel super attached to this. But look, my personal feelings on this in this particular issue are not the issue. If it was, we would have the kind of country where people's entire lives are ruled by other people's opinions. And that would be horrible. So while I can have a personal opinion about the bump stocks, it doesn't mean that I am opposed to bump stocks, and it doesn't mean I'm in favor of banning them. I personally don't see much in them that is not eliminated by the ability to have fully automatic weapons. And so I can't tell you that this is a hill I'm prepared to go die on, but infringement means infringement, and consistency means that I would be against the ban.
Well, your apparent, call it agnosticism or equivocation, one way or the other. Your critics will call it equivocation.
It is equivocation.
Seems to track with what the NRA itself said. In October of 2017, Donald Trump apparently told the NRA bump stocks have got to go, and the NRA basically said that they were open to a review of the regulations regarding bump stocks, and really didn't make a statement one way or the other about it, just said that everything should comply with existing law. And of course, the existing law referenced here is the ban on machine guns. Now, Bill, the shooting in Las Vegas changed everything. The term that wasn't even known to the American public suddenly became known, and now bump stocks have become the chief attack point of the gun regulation people. NRA in the past, Bill, has always said that if you start letting the left get a little bit, they're going to take a lot. Why not in this case? Why is the NRA not kicking back against this hard?
Because I think the NRA, I can't speak for the NRA. I was employed by the NRA for a year. I'm no longer employed by them. I do not speak for them in any official capacity whatsoever. But I suspect that large numbers of NRA members have the same ambivalence about gun stocks that I do. And if you want me to refine this philosophically for you, I can certainly make an attempt to do so. The bump stock, as I said, is essentially a poor man's fully automatic switch. It's just a way around having a fully automatic weapon. For those of you who may not be familiar, the AR-15 as an example is a semi-automatic rifle. You load the magazine, you cock the weapon, and then the recoil from one bullet firing puts the next one into position and ready to fire. But that means it is bang, 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 bang.
You pull the trigger once for every bullet.
You pull trigger one time for every round. That's a semi-automatic rifle. What the bump stock does is when you bang, it's the vibration, everything goes, you bang. So it's fully automatic. I personally have a problem with fully automatic fire. Again, this is my personal opinion on this, but I personally cannot see any need for automatic fire under the conditions that I believe the weapon needs to be owned for, which is defense of my family, defense of myself, defense of my neighborhood, and defense of the entire people of America against overreaching government or very, very ambitious criminals.
Well, it seems like you're undercutting the whole Second Amendment argument right there.
Hang on one second. So when I say that my problem with bump stocks is that it appears to me that the only reason to have a bump stock would be spray and pray. That's not disciplined fire. That's not the kind of fire where you're responsible. I take those responsibilities very seriously. I am always aware of what is downrange of what I'm shooting at. Now, I had this exact conversation with a gentleman who I respect enormously, whose first name is Mike, and I had this precise conversation with him. And he made the argument, which I think is, if I had to come back and sit down on it, the argument I would make is infringement is infringement, and once you start infringing, you're in deep water. This is a very knotty issue for me, obviously. I personally think that abandoning the bump stock does not abandon the AR-15 and what I or anybody who I think is a serious and disciplined shooter has that weapon for.
Well,
so to me, it's not infringement on my right to keep and bear arms. It's my infringement on my right to use arms for automatic weapons fire, and since automatic fire is pretty much by definition unaimed or certainly precisely aimed, untimed. I don't know. I could have a bump stock ban and still be perfectly comfortable with being able to own the AR-15 that I own.
Well, here's what people are going to say, Bill. They're going to say, well, there he was, that NRA cheerleader who was all for the Second Amendment. And frankly, there are three elements here. Let me just give you a bouquet of these. You can take any of them or ignore all of them. But number one, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms has previously ruled that bump stocks are accessories and that federal regulation does not allow the federal government to regulate accessories. Number two, the Second Amendment exists not to go deer hunting or to carefully shoot a burglar who comes into your house, but to protect yourself against a predacious, heavily armed government. And number three, people who commit crimes and mass murders don't necessarily abide by laws. So, Bill, what it looks like is that you are backing away from your firm convictions because you don't want to stop your support of President Trump because Trump's behind this.
Well, if it looks like that, let me clarify for you. As I said from the beginning of this segment, I'm talking about my personal opinions. If it were up to me to make a ruling, I would not ban bump stocks because, as I said from the beginning of this segment, infringement is infringement. I am talking about the intellectual and moral argument behind it. I do not see any reason for a citizen to have automatic weapon fire to defend himself. That, to me, seems like automatic weapon fire. By the way, which this is my understanding, the fully automatic setting on the N4 carbine, this is my understanding anyway, which is essentially the AR-15, which we deploy with our military overseas, used to have a fully automatic function, and it's been reduced. It's gone. There's a semi-automatic now and a 3-round burst option because this is just plain, panic firing. It might be useful against a human wave attack, but that's not something I'm terribly worried about. So when you weigh the pros and cons on this, on an individual basis, my personal individual evaluation is that while I and everybody that I know who takes this obligation seriously has the clear understanding that a semi-automatic weapon is more than capable than putting out enough aimed rounds so that you know where that bullet's going and where it's going behind that. And I cannot think of a legitimate reason for fully automatic fire for that weapon other than to spray it into a crowd of people.
My understanding is the regulation, once it goes into effect, and according to the news story I read, it said it could go into effect as early as this Friday, means that those people who currently own bump stocks must destroy them or turn them in within 90 days. How do you feel about that?
That I have a major problem with. In fact, that I am dead set against. Once you retroactively make something that was purchased legal illegal, you've turned honest citizens into criminals. And you furthermore empower the government to go and forcibly take property from those people that they bought fully legally with their own money. I'm 100% against confiscation of existing. I'm against confiscation of existing anything. If you bought a weapon when it was legal, then that's how it is. I had to modify my AR-15. It wasn't too much of a modification, actually, when they changed the gun laws in California. And I had to decide whether or not I was going to do this simple little modification to keep it California legal, or I was going to register myself as having an assault weapon, which in California I am only allowed to carry from point A to point B, namely my house to the shooting range. And if I stop by at McDonald's for a milkshake on the way home, technically speaking, I'm in felony violation of that law. So I decided to have the weapon modified. And I was outraged by the fact that when I bought that weapon, it was 100% legal under the laws of California. If they want to change the laws for stuff that's coming up, upcoming sales, this is the world we live in today. But to retroactively make criminals out of people and to empower law enforcement to go and take property that was purchased legally is something I am 100% dead set against. And I'd love to tell you, by the way, look, I understand that this my personal answer is probably not going to please anybody. I understand that the people who are opposed to semi-automatic weapons are going to say, oh, well, he's in favor of this, but he's obviously doesn't want to go with this. And I understand the Second Amendment purists are going to say infringement, which is why I will say for the fifth time now that if I was asked to give a legal opinion on this, I would be against the ban on ideological and philosophical grounds only. But from a practical point of view and a personal point of view, I don't have any problem with this because I cannot think of a legitimate reason for fully automatic fire by any disciplined shooter under any circumstances.
To be a man of principle doesn't mean that you always have an easy answer to every question. It means that you have to bring the news of the day and the facts of the moment into line with your principles and see what clicks and what doesn't. And we do that here 5 days a week on Bill Whittle Now. We appreciate the people who make that possible at Bill Whittle's website, which you can, by the way, you can join those people. You can become one of the producers of this program by going to billwhittle.com and clicking that Become a Member link at the top of the page. You'll get signed up to be one of the citizen producers of this show and of many other shows here at billwhittle.com. We appreciate the support of those members. So for Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to y'all for making it possible.